Hi, I'm Dheeraj Singh again, your lockdown chef, back with another exciting recipe of the ultimate comfort food for me, which I'm sure it's going to be for you as well after watching this video. So the recipe that I have for you today is of the apple pie. I know it sounds intimidating and tough, but trust me, it's not. It's going to be really easy once you watch my video, and I'm sure it's going to be one of your favorite foods after watching this. So for the apple pie, we basically need 4 key ingredients, which are of course the apple. We need refined flour, we need sugar, we need butter. In this case, salted butter. It is better if you don't have salted butter, use plain butter, and we can add a pinch of salt to the flour. And ground cinnamon. We'll take 2 cups of refined flour, all-purpose flour. And a little bit extra because we didn't get a full cup. Now what we do to the flour is we add the butter. Just chunks of butter straight from the fridge. We just add it. Gently we mix the two. We don't want a very fine dough between the butter and the flour. We just want them to mix to a breadcrumb consistency. So I've taken about 200 grams of flour, and to that I add an equal amount of butter, which is 200 grams of butter. So this is the ratio that you must remember, 1:1. Gently just rub the butter into the flour. This is our breadcrumb consistency, and that's all we need. And now we add some really chilled water. The water has to be really chilled to the dough. Just spread it across and add the water. We want the water to just help in firming it up. So not too much water, just go by your instincts. We need to just firm up the dough, no pressing, just enough water so that the crumbs that you've made stick together. So this is called a short crust dough, which is equal amount of fat, which is butter, and flour. There's no baking powder in it because we don't want anything to rise. It should be the texture of a nicely baked biscuit. So there you go, our dough is ready. Now I'm going to divide this big blob into 2 equal parts. One is going to be the bottom crust and the other half will be for the top crust. So just make sure you divide them into 2. Let one part be slightly bigger than the other. There you go. So one part is slightly bigger than the other. So the bigger one is the base crust and the smaller one is the top lattice crust. And now we need to refrigerate these 2 big and small doughs so they really firm up. So we just take an empty plastic bowl and bung these in. So we're keeping it aluminum foil covered because we don't want the dough to crust. And now they're ready to go inside the refrigerator. In the meantime, I'll peel, cut and slice the apples. So there's this lovely story about the apple pie. During the Second World War, where the British soldiers used to talk about fighting for king and country, their American counterparts used to say they're fighting for mom and apple pie. One reason why I want the apple slices to be thin is because I cook the apples with the pie. Some other recipes tell you to stew the apples separately, which is why you don't need to cut them really thin. After cutting the apples, it's a good idea to slice half a lime and squeeze the juice on top of the apples. So now I've got my dough out of the refrigerator and it's time to roll. And you can dust the tabletop. The tabletop, let me tell you, it has a painting and it's been painted by me. And now I'm cooking on it. Isn't that wonderful? Remember, it's a crumbly, soft dough, so go easy. Don't press too much. When you do a rolling, it'll expand on its own, but don't give too much pressure. Remember that the dough has blobs of butter in it, which might stick to your rolling pin. So that's not a problem. Just take it out and put it back into the great big mix below you. Gently, just make the rolling pin wear it, and there, and onto the baking tray. Doesn't matter if it falls, you can cut it and add it wherever the dough is missing, or the parts where the dough is missing. Cut the extra part. Now this is a deep dish, which means it can take in a lot of apples, which is a good thing. Our apple pie is going to be a nice, appley, cinnamony, sugary affair. So now is the part where I create a mandala of apple slices in my pie. So let's go on. And now is the time to put some sugar, sprinkle it with some sugar. So I have a cup full of sugar that I'm going to use, maybe not the whole, but quite a bit of it, and go on arranging. The interesting part of the pie making process is that you have to understand the chemistry of it, how stuff or how different ingredients that you're putting in interact with each other, how they cook, how they burn, or when they burn. And now is the time to sprinkle some more sugar, and this time I'll be sprinkling some ground cinnamon, coarsely ground cinnamon that I ground myself. Sprinkle some cinnamon, save some for the top layer. I think that's enough, and I'm going to place some more apples. I love the smell of freshly ground cinnamon, as you would too. This is my third layer of apples, apple slices, and it's probably my last one, and I am almost done with all my apples. And now my last dousing with sugar. You can see I've almost exhausted my cup full of sugar, which is good. And this is my last sprinkling of freshly ground cinnamon, coarsely ground cinnamon. It needn't be very, very fine. Coarsely ground is good because in the slow cooking process, it lets out its flavor and aroma. So now we are ready for the second dough, which is the crust. But before you do that, make sure you switch on the oven so it's preheated for your pie. So at about 200 degrees centigrade, I'm going to go in for half an hour, a little more over the half an hour. Now I'm going to roll the second dough, which is the smaller portion of the dough, and this is for the crust. So for the rolling, we have the same process. Dust the table, sit down your dough, press it a little, and then start rolling. I'm going to be using a serrated edged cutter because it gives a nice design to your pie topping. So take your longest piece and place it in the center across like this. If there's an overhang, don't worry. And similarly, the second longest piece next to it, like this, and so on with the third, like this. And so there you have it. It's all ready to go into the oven. Half an hour has passed and the bell has gone on the oven, so which means our pie is ready. So let's have a look. It's a nice, crusty, apple-smelling, delicious-looking pie. How does it look, Kazuo?
It looks like a restaurant apple pie.
Amazing, that was the idea. And while it's still hot, I'm going to cut it so we can enjoy a nice, steaming hot apple pie. And just slide my hand.
It's tricky.
Yeah, this is very tricky. Okay, let me put some ice cream on top.
More.
More?
Yes, more.
Let's go.
I'm the official taster.